We are recording.
Yes, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for coming to another Austin Python meetup. This is the July meetup. We have a great talk today with Alex Clark, the creator and project lead of Pillow. And I will let you take it away.
Great, thank you, George. Welcome to the Austin Python meetup. My name is Alex, unless you're a government form, in which case I'm Jeffrey A. Clark. Long story there. This talk title, 14 Years of Pillow, 29 Years of Pill, when I named the talk, it was before I had given a talk a few months ago for DC Python / Austin Python meetup, in which I covered the Pillow handbook. So this talk is part 2 of that talk. So I'm going to finish reviewing and providing code examples for the handbook tutorial where I left off last time, then continue with reviewing and providing code examples for the handbook concepts section. And in a future talk, I may continue with the handbook appendices section until I'm all done, and there's a lot to go through. So, but I don't want to totally ignore the title 14 Years of Pillow, 29 Years of Pill, because I think it's a clever title. So let's cover the basics. Pillow 1.0 was released on July 31st, 2010. Pill's 10-year anniversary was June 15th, 2005, according to Friedrich on ImageSig. Python 0.9.0 was published to AltSource's news group on February 20th, 1991, after about a year of development starting in 1989. This stuff is old, so no matter what I talk about, it's hard to avoid talking about the history of the library, and that's okay because the history is super fascinating. What's also interesting is the ongoing development, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. So since 2010, ongoing development, first it was just me for about 3 years doing packaging fixes. It was a packaging fork. Then in 2013, we added Python 3 support. Lately, we're adding type hints. Andrew, one of the 4 core developers, is adding type hints pretty much every day. I read added type hints, pull requests, and merges. And there's one I started working on or took an interest in, an issue from 2016 about high bit depth multi-channel images, which I want to get to in this talk or some version of this talk, but haven't quite managed to fit it in. So like I said, this talk is about the handbook tutorial, which is from the 90s or 2000s or whenever Friedrich published. So, but first, let me go through me and my history because there is some overlap. Here I am in 98, 3 years after the first Pill release. CS degree, 1998. Then in 2008, we hosted the Plone conference in DC, which was 2 years before the fork. And I've been paid by Tidelift, a company called Tidelift, to work on Pillow since 2019. Which makes me a lifter in the parlance of Tidelift. Now, this is not a full-time job, which I really wish it was at this point, because Pillow's endlessly fascinating. I could spend all my time on it, but I have to go do a day job. And I have a company doing Python web stuff, and that takes up some time too. So I'm underemployed currently. This is in 2020 before what I consider to be a really good talk about the history. All the history is covered. So definitely check that out. And I every time I do one of these, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll get to do all this stuff, and then I'll have it to refer to. But then I could never find anything that I had done in the past. But this talk has a lot of stuff in it, and I refer to it a lot, which is nice. And I'm hoping this talk eventually turns into that too. So Tidelift approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to get paid for this?" And I said yes. And I recruited the active developers at the time, asked everybody who also wanted to get paid, and we split the payment that is not a living wage, 4 ways between the four of us every month. So it's not a full-time gig, but it's it's thrilling nonetheless, and it's like a record deal or something. Gives you the street cred. You're getting paid for your open source. So I also advocate for Tidelift on behalf of lifters and try to get other people to lift their software and get paid for it, and just tell people what the company is about and what lifting is. And that started last year, continues this year. I'm looking for a job, as I mentioned. In school, I thought it was hilarious to have this on my website that you should hire me. It's not that funny anymore, but I still get a kick out of it. That's a link to my resume. I'm not clicking on any of these links, but they are links. And the PDF will eventually be in the repository. So let's talk about Tidelift briefly. I love Tidelift, especially their business model, which in the past I called Red Hat for everything but the kernel, until XZ happened recently. And now I call it Red Hat for the middle stack, based on Tidelift's Louis Villa. He's an open source attorney, in which he describes lifted software as the middle stack, meaning not the kernel and not large open source projects that already have funding. So the middle stack, basically, like Pill is one example. A lot of the top URL lib3 is another example. So I've always felt like at home with this company, and kind of feel like I work well. I do work for them in a sense too, and I'm part of their community. It's a nice. I like what they're doing. So every year they publish a developer survey, and so if you are an open source software developer, you can go take the survey and get a free T-shirt. And I recommend that you do that. It's this shirt. Half of my clothing at this point is from them. Okay, so Pillow. When I did the talk a few months ago, I wanted to write all the examples. They're all in one module called Demo Pi, and then there's a few in this round. There's a few others that I just import from Demo Pi and cheat. And I'm going to run that over here, and we're going to skip through most of them. And let me see what order we can go in here. And yes, that's a Taylor Swift joke. Okay, so this talk is part 2. And for Jacob, this is totally not the talk I gave 3 months ago. It's specifically not that talk, because you said don't do the same talk. So I'm not doing the same talk. And what I am going to do is link to the branch that has that talk, which is all the code examples that are still here, but more. Not as many more as I wanted to, but a few more. And then when I started to prepare the talk, I looked at what's out there as far as there's a gazillion code examples for pill and pillow all over the internet, and so it's interesting to kind of take a look around. So I did that. These were my favorites, and then I settled on just there's code in the handbook, and so I did take some of that code and either use it or modify it to my liking, and so the goal is to get code examples for the handbook all in one place. And then here's some screenshots of a few of the others settling on the handbook. Now here's the old or here's the talk I gave a few months ago, and we're going to skip through all this stuff. So just enjoy the ride, and I'm going to take a quick break. This goes up to like 26, and then we'll stop it and keep going. And if you see anything in here, we can still stop and talk about it. And then when this is done, I'm going to go back to the terminal and pick up there. I didn't write Pill. I'm a Python web developer, so this is all new-ish to me. I'm technical, but I don't know image processing, so like this is actually very interesting and entertaining and educational for me to be able to take part in. Like the terminology, image bands and modes. Okay, so we're gonna stop after PostScript. And the oops. I changed the background color so we can be sure where we are. Okay, and then in the terminal to run this, oops, I'm already in it. I just Control D out of each one, so we're going to go through. And by the way, stop me at any time if we can do inline questions, show code, whatever. But I'm going to get to, 26. And then we're going to get to this part of the tutorial, reading and writing images. So this is where I left off. Wait. Tutorial using the image class. Yeah, okay, so this is all, we just scrolled through all of this, and we are at more on reading images. So I'm also going to critique the tutorial since it's so old and some of it reads kind of bizarre to me. For example, I'm not sure why we need to point out that this is how you open and read an image, but that wasn't in the tutorial, so that's what I did. So code snippet here, reading in the image, showing that we read in the image, and same thing here. And then we can also stop at any time and look at that image in the terminal. Again, reading from binary data, interesting, but not that interesting. I don't know. So they have, just noticed that I didn't actually code the URL and the tar archive, so I am going to go back and do that. But I did code the first one, which is just to write it to a buffer and read it back, which is not especially interesting, but it's in the it's in the tutorial. So I got the code for it. Some of this is ChatGPT code where there wasn't stuff in the tutorial, just to have the example. And it's also slightly interesting if you're a beginner. I know Jacob likes to cover the range of beginner to expert. It's slightly interesting that these examples are in different modules. So here's demo that I'm just going to kill my. In this demo, I just, do the code and then bring the console back up and so on. So we have this read and write, or excuse me, this read into the buffer and then read it from the buffer and show that we have the image. This is where it gets slightly interesting, but again, this isn't really pillow or pill specific. Like this is just Python that you're calling calling pill functions. So it would be more interesting to me if you could say image open and then, you know, star dot JPEG and it called out to glob or pathlib or whatever, but this is the example they gave. So interesting bit of syntax here to grab the file name, but not the extension. And then again, interesting that that we have this little, you know, function here to do something in a batch style. That, like I said, when I was doing this, the first thing that occurred to me was that this isn't really saying anything about batch processing in build. You're just using Python to batch process. So nice. And then they did a pathlib example, which I thought was actually kind of interesting. So instead of instead of importing glob, they use pathlib, which has its own or actually it's in demo. Where are we at? 30, 129. So you got the first one where you batch process like so with glob, and then you got the second one where you do it with, oh no, sorry. Is this the pathlib one? Yeah, here it is. This is pathlib instead of this. So you get a slight win on the syntax, I guess, with pathlib. Right here. And oh, there's that code too. So I actually had it in the slide. And then we see a bunch of files written to this batch directory that I created. This got interesting because I was like, what is a draft mode? And it turns out it's probably what I would have called preview mode for batch processing and not actually reading in the entire contents of the file because you're doing, you know, 1,000 images and you don't want to kill, you know, consume too much memory. And so that's called batch or draft here. And you get to see a part of it, or maybe do operations on the draft of the image instead of the entire image. At least that's my read of it. Having just gone through it. So that ends the tutorial part. And then I decided that I would go through concepts and appendices in the Pillow documentation. So I do a little bit of concepts here. And then I decided, let's throw in logos too, because that's interesting. So I got to that this time around too. And then I mentioned multi-channel high bit depth images, and I want to cover that, but I didn't get to it. That's this issue 1880. I want to cover that in some meaningful way, but I didn't get to it yet. So concepts goes back to basics and shows you that if you open an image file, you can get the bands, and there they are. And Modes, same thing. This gets especially interesting when you go look at the appendices and see, what's supported in pill. Same with size. So those are just 3 convenient attributes that you have to tell you about your image. Then in concepts, Cartesian, plane, and this is ChatGPT wrote this to show you Pillow's coordinate system, which I thought was cool. Palette, again, this kind of blows my mind because, again, not an image processor by trade here, and palette is a mode. And so if you want to swap out the palette, you have to convert the image to palette mode. So that's what happens in this example. And I write out, and every time I run this local, you notice that it is random because I'm not sure why I'm getting an enhanced hopper, but I'm getting a random image every time I run this, which is kind of cool. So that's Hopper there. She's all randomized, and she got randomized in or via this. And so this is probably one of the most interesting ones, I guess. Image ops is imported. The conversion to palette mode happens. Pill. I'm just gonna say pill instead of pill. Pill has all these constant attributes all over the place, which I don't fully understand. So this is image adaptive is 1. Maybe somebody can explain that, but and then randomization happens, and then we write the file out. So that was probably one of my favorites in doing this round 2. Info is also interesting for talking about EXIF data, and Hopper doesn't have any, so I did another one with a photo, and so that's going to have some EXIF data, which you can see in info. And interesting. I also didn't fully understand ICC profile being binary. It's the color profile. Color experts would know more about that. Okay, this one was cool too. Oops. Cool and short. So transparency via alpha channel. And this, again, written by ChatGPT, creates a transparent image, and then I think lays something on top of it, which was cool. So in demo Pi, every time I import one of these things, when you import it, it runs. So that's what's happening in the demo. So and it looks like I didn't include that in the I'd include it in the slide. So here it is. This is maybe just the thing laid on top is transparent. I'm not sure. Let's check them back. Orientation I didn't get to, but there is plenty of examples of just changing the orientation with image operations module, but I wanted to come up with it, or to do an exif transpose, and that's probably what I'll do for the next time, to see orientation happen via that method, which, you know, possibly just calls the other methods. Anyway, same with filters. I didn't get to, in the appendices, there's, or no, actually in the concepts, there's a list of filters. And although some are covered in the earlier parts of this talk, it would be interesting to go through those. So then I said, let's throw in logos because that's interesting. And I had listed some logos that I'd already done, but I made up new ones for this, or ChatGPT wrote this and a fancy one. And so you create a blank image, you load the font, which I found out today only works, or requires that the font, or the font location is dependent on which operating system you are. So when I logged into my server here, this didn't work, so I had to fall back to this. So not great code here, because if those two aren't there, then falls over. But it demonstrates that you are just drawing with math on the image, which is kind of cool. And I think I did include, yes. So not especially good looking, but cool to know that you can manipulate the image in Python. And then fancy logo. Same thing with the fonts, and then an additional fanciness. I think it's a gradient that it does there. Let's see. So I thought that was cool. Logos covered, at least the basics. Didn't get to this, but this one is absolutely fascinating. And 1888 is something that we have a pull request for, to potentially support VFX and GIS communities to be able to use file formats that they use in those industries with Python imaging library. So the Moco makers thing that Jacob mentioned, Matt just, excuse me, volunteered to, or came to the talk 3 months ago and said that he wanted to help, and he organized a hackathon, and you know, someone came out of nowhere and wrote the C for it, which tickles me. And so at this point, you know, I've sent the pull request, and we're going to try to get people to test it. And it's something that, it's a this year thing. It could go in this year, and it could be impactful the same way Python 3 support was in 2013. I don't know. I actually spent a good bit of time trying to get a job in like the VFX community based on the overlap of open source and visual effects. I became interested in. So that's where my interest came from. But if it can turn into this 1888 issue from 2016 being implemented, then that's going to be especially exciting. And maybe I'm doing another one of these later in the year for somebody else in California. So maybe there'll be more info on that. It's the C part is interesting because the developer just did pointer math and used the existing data structures written by Friedrich in the 90s and loaded the data, additional bands from from the file image or the image types that we don't currently support. And I had Eric V. Smith from the Python core team look at it, and he kind of signed off on it. So it's very lightweight. I think we'll be able to figure out that it's not introducing any, any security issues or making it harder for us to maintain, and that we'll be able to release it. And this talk is there, and like I said, I'm probably going to at least do one more round of this, and hopefully that wasn't terrible, and thank you.
No, that was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for writing the library.
Yeah. Well, I didn't write it, but I did fork it.
Forked it, yeah. But,
Yeah. Questions?
I see someone's got their hand raised.
I can start if someone wants to.
Well, it looks like Delapo has his hand raised, or their hand raised. I don't know if they want to ask their...
Delapo, I think he wanted to clap.
Okay.
Okay.
Delapo, if you have a question, if you want a question, then go ahead, unmute yourself and talk. Okay, I'll ask. Maybe he will. Maybe more questions coming later. So, I actually attended there was a hackathon around Pillow not long ago, and I attended, and it actually kind of amazed me how people are able to do many things still in 2 dimensions. So the hackathon was about extending Pillow to do multi-band images. So those are useful if you have like satellite images that have more information, or even 3-dimensional data. If it's sometimes compressed in voxels, sometimes you can say layer 1, layer 2, and so on and so forth. So there was a hackathon around it with a very nice solution that someone brought in. So Alex, you want to talk about this? It's about the issue.
Yeah, that's what I didn't get to fully explore.
Well, let's do this slide
this time around, and we can talk about it now because it is fascinating. And I have, let's see.
Just tell something about it. Maybe you'll attract someone.
Yeah. So this is the guy who came out of nowhere to write the code. So cheers to this guy. And like I said, he wrote C mostly, and the hackathon kind of like nothing ever happened with the hackathon. So I just
oh, they did. He proposed a good solution.
He did, and I said I never got back. I was talking to Matt in Slack, and we never finalized anything. So I just opened this PR, and this is the second time I'm doing it because the first PR had issues, so I closed it. And so this is the PR that that I sent from his repository of his code. And the most, or the
tell about the problem first, because people don't even know. I just gave some overview, but explain what happened. The problem. This is something issue. It's interesting because people can dive into open source problems that you actually see, and this is an issue that was open quite a while. So,
okay. So let me just go to the issue because that's easier than, or at least people can follow along here. So, Eric Wiredful is Pillow Man number 2, who joined 2013-ish and is the security guy on the team. Opened this. He's less active nowadays, but still around. So he opened this ticket in 2016 and said that we should be able to open, or we can only open 8 bits per channel. So we want to be able to open more than 8 bits per channel on multi-channel images.
Okay, explain what it is for people who don't know. So, like, I want them to understand the complexity of what Pillow can lift now and what will be probably in the future. So,
right. So for that, I
Explain
would say
exactly.
image file formats. We support all of these. Or is it concepts? The concept section of the docs has all the current modes that we support, and there's a limit on the amount of data that we can read in, and so we want to improve or increase the size of. We're going to read in more data because these file formats require the spec for the file formats that we want to support that we don't currently support require that.
Okay, so let's take one just for example. RGB, the ones that we usually have 8 bits per channel, meaning that we have very rich color. Am I correct?
Yeah, you have 3 channels. You have a red channel, blue channel, green channel, and then you have
each one's represented by 8 bits. 8 bits gives a number between one intensity of red between 1 and 256.
There it is.
Like, or 0 to 55, doesn't matter. So meaning no red or red intensity, and there are 255 levels in between, and the same for blue and green. And there's also something called alpha channel, which is if you've seen images that are kind of like transparent. So alpha is another channel that gives yeah. So far am I good, Alex?
Yes, please continue.
Okay, so if I understood well, and Alex will correct me, this hackathon is kind of interesting because today, if we have machines that usually hold 30 bits, 32-bit, this means 8 bits are 8-bit G, 8-bit B, and then 8 bits are reserved for alpha if you want it or not. And this is like 32 bits that you write into memory in one time. So now what happens if you want more than 8 bits per channel, meaning you want your distinction between levels of red more accurate? So you want 16 bits per channel, for example. So this is one issue. The other issue is, what if tomorrow you want another channel other than alpha? Let's say you want some satellite image that, I don't know, gives you some infrared or whatever, or ultraviolet or whatever. So you need more channels, so then it doesn't fit in this, in 1 bit memory. Sorry, one byte memory, or actually one register on the computer, which is 32 bits usually. So there's a problem doing this. And someone came up with an issue. And when did it come up, this issue, Jeffrey? It was, sorry, Alex, many years ago, correct?
2016.
2016, but the problem started way before because the C code is actually, I
From
think,
the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, so the C code is in the 90s. So now someone has to fix in something from code from the 90s. So how are we going to do that? And the first thing in my mind say, oh, it cannot be done. You have to do a... Yeah. Here, Alex remembers my say, no, you need to have, if you want more channels, you have to have another dimension of the data instead of a 2-dimensional array of 32 bits elements. But then again, someone came up with a different solution, which was kind of interesting. So
yeah, so I don't have it prepared here, but this highway TIFF is something that someone gave us for test data, and you can see we can't open it yet. So that's the first step. So if I were to check out the branch that has this code, and in theory, we could open this file and look at the data. And
this is happening right now, by the way. It's like the solution is someone set up the solution partially, but it has to finish it. So if someone is interested in open source coding, then they can fork from this guy and continue development, and then merge into Pillow eventually.
Correct, and it's it's since 2013 in Python 3, I haven't really taken an interest and pushed for anything, and so that's why it's especially interesting for me, and I don't think like Python 3 that people would be like, oh my God, this, this has to happen. This is only going to happen if there is, a push for it from these communities, which I'm hoping to, guide along.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, think about images in the future, like that you have all those like voxel images, or like here, even MRI images. Think about it. Those are just images laid down, but they have layers of those. It's like slices of whatever they went through in the human body that they scanned. It's like slices. So it's like three-dimensional. It's like an image, and on top of it another image, and on top of it another image. And if you have the support in multi-channel images, you should be able to import that into Pillow and do some basic operations.
Yeah, so you can see here, I just made a TIFF from our Hopper image, and now I'm comparing it to the TIFF that we can't open, and you can see, I'm not sure what those differences mean, but you can see that they're different files compared to, they're different types of TIFF image data, according to the file command. And then maybe let's look at, I remember where I wanted to look at the C that,
TIFF.
yeah, but I think there's a more general one. Zip file. Something that has the data structure in it. Anyway, yeah. So 1888, super interesting, ongoing effort.
Yeah. So people who are interested in open source code and want to, know some C and want to mess around with something really interesting that already has made quite an impact around the world and wanted to help continue making an impact, then that's one open source issue that people can handle. And it's now, the solution is almost laid out. Someone did a great job in doing it. You just have to finish this and wrap it up, and Alex can guide you. So anyone who's like has extra time now looking for things to do and get into open source, that's a good idea. The tough part is behind you now.
Yeah.
Are you still in touch with him, Alex?
Yeah, actually, I think he just did something here. I think I tried to fix this and he tried to fix it again.
It actually passed some tests, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And he did it all in a weekend. So
yeah, it was really amazing to watch, actually. So I'll probably be reading the C code for the next 10 years.
You can get GPT to help you. I mean, GPT adds nice comments to things.
Yeah. I don't shy away from it, believe me, but it is helpful to a degree.
Yeah. Any other questions, remarks, anything you want to add, ask, open source, Pillow? Come on, don't be shy. Alex, you know what? While everyone's asking, I'll ask a question so people will know how much Pillow is important. How many downloads you have?
Yeah, a lot. Let's see, something like 500. Let me run PyPy stats. Hold What is here? Oh.
You just broke pipe.
Yeah, so this tells you stuff, and it's pretty interesting. I like to compare. Okay, yeah, 500 million over the course of this year, so 6 months or so.
So this is how much this library is being used. People don't know it, but each time they download like some other library, oh, Pillow is getting downloaded because, oh, someone needs to deal with images.
Absolutely. And the other lifted library that is downloaded a lot is URL lib3, which is 3 billion over the same period of time. So that's what it is. We're at 500 million. URL lib3 is at 3 billion.
Well, that's Pillow for you. Come on, ask questions. Now's the time. Alex won't stay here forever.
Yeah, that was a good time. Let's see, what, 7:30? Yeah.
How do you guys manage this project? Do you guys have like a Scrum board? Do you do the thing, or you just get issues?
No, actually, it's I'll show you like the day-to-day is.
You guys run stand up?
No, it's so like I said, it's totally, stress-free. I'm in the Tide Lift Slack and we have a Pillow Slack, but we don't really there's a cadence where back in the day in 2010, I think, or sometime between 2010 and 2013, I was just like, okay, we're going to release every quarter. So, and then
You're doing way better than that.
huh?
You're doing way better than that. I'm looking at your releases right here. You're releasing like every month, every other month.
No, it's still once a quarter. There's
Yeah.
four per year.
Yeah.
In half a year.
Yeah. Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just did one in July 1st, was it? So
Yeah.
yeah, see. And so at some point, these 3 other people joined the project and started doing stuff, and I just like disappeared. I would come back like every quarter, like I said.
You got a project. Do you have a board? Do you use the GitHub board?
I have used it, but we don't use it here. So we have, if you look at, so there's 4 people, me, Eric, Hugo, and Andrew. And Andrew does a lot of the coding and Hugo does a lot of the reviewing. So those 2 kind of just work, at least 5 days a week, a few hours a day. I don't know how they do it. I mean, I guess they have day jobs too. But so Radar here is Andrew Murray. And so he does most of the coding, bug fixes day to day. And I if nothing else, I just read the GitHub messages. And there's times where, like I said, I used to just like turn notifications off unless I was notified. But now I'm reading them daily. So, and they are every single day. Like he is coding, fixing bugs. Hugo's reviewing, merging. We have our, quarterly release ticket. There's a lot of the work is CI. Some of the work is security. TileLift is our security policy. They manage our security policy, which is huge because otherwise this would be a stressful project. And so what will happen is TileLift will email me and say, Atlassian or Google or somebody, reported this security issue. And so then I say, okay, thank you. And then we have another private repository where the fixes happen. And usually Eric will say something and Andrew will submit the fix. So everyone that's doing it just kind of does the part that they like and it just keeps going. And
so I think I see it there, but so you're creating a release branch, everybody's working in the branch and then you cut the tag and then you merge back into master once the release is done? Or how are you doing that?
We definitely branch and tag, and branches are probably in case we have to go back and do, like a 10.4.1 or 10.4.2. And most interestingly, it is the CI build wheel that over, many years, probably at least half the length, if it's 14 years old, probably at least 7 years, we went from, like me just running twine or something. For a while it was, those guys would run twine. Now it's like completely automated. It takes like 4 hours, but it's entirely automated. And I don't even have like the available time I would like to have to just kind of like go through all the GitHub actions and check out CI build wheel. There's another project I want to help with wheels on, and a lot of people tell me they base their wheels on our build stuff. And what was I doing? I was looking at branches.
Alex, I'll give you a question that everyone like we typically repeat that question in this meetup, because we sometimes have beginners or people want to go into open source and they are not sure why, and they hear about the library and they are kind of shy of trying to contribute. So are there any good issues or anything that's fit for beginners that's you might want beginners come into the Pillow and help with? Sometimes it's documentation, it's something else, but is there anything?
Absolutely. I mean,
Tell us.
I am I did a bunch of documentation for Tidelift in which I backfilled our docs with a bunch of CVE information. So, and if this was my full-time job, there would be probably a constant flow of documentation improvements like happens with the code, but we might even have a tag for it. But there's definitely things that you can find. You can see we have 410 contributors, which means we've accepted contributions from a lot of people who have found this or that to fix and do, usually for their own workflow or whatever they're doing.
Is there anything that you would recommend for beginner that say, okay, we probably need that, or something that's open now currently, or what should they look for if they want to contribute to Pillow?
Other than documentation, I don't know offhand. I was trying to see if we had a good for beginners.
You mentioned somebody was doing the type annotations.
Yeah. Andrew does them. I mean, I see them almost every day. So,
is that dangerous for a beginner, or is that something like a beginner could start reading code and say, "Yep, that's an int"?
That's a good question. I think that it's probably something that could be a good PR, because, and actually, I'm expecting that at some point we'll finish.
Here, need documentation is like something that I saw a tag that's probably maybe fitting for beginners.
Yeah, I was going to go load the docs. So where did I put release notes? So I recently backfilled all of these, which are mostly CVEs. So docs are a great thing for people who don't know anything, which is kind of, me in terms of some of the day-to-day, like there are plugins for all the common image file formats, and there's just so much going on with, people asking, and like NumPy integration, you can get down into a rabbit hole really quickly, and it's amazing to watch Andrew, keep up with that.
Okay, so if anyone wants to join and help with Pillow, how do they contact you?
Mostly, we see people just opening issues, and the engagement starts at that point. And I answer some percentage of issues where it's like, okay, send us something, send us what you think this should be, and we'll review it. So that's typically how it starts.
So, but then they have to know Pillow enough to actually be able to contribute. So if they're beginners, it's kind of like hard, especially it's like they'll feel shy to open an issue and say something. But if they just get involved and want to help. So
I mean,
usually,
we have, if the discussions is another place to check out. So
good. How do we get there?
it's just a GitHub feature. So if you go to Pillow and instead of issues, discussions, it's not super heavily used, but
Do you have like a how to dev readme for Pill
I think that there's a
or an M Markdown?
yeah,
Pillow.
let's see if we have anything for.
Contributing or something, usually it's
Yeah, we may not have that actually. We may need that.
okay.
A great beginner task, right? The documentation on.
Okay. If anyone is interested, contributing to Pillow, contact Alex and write
Although actually, now that you mention it, I think we have it's not in the documentation, but we do have don't we have a contributing?
I think changes is the one that
Changes.rst.
changes is the last changes. From
Maybe
last
we
month.
don't. Maybe we don't have and need a contributing dot something.
That's normally, I mean, as a newbie, that's normally the first place I try and look, because I'll look for a README that's like, set up your development environment. And by the way, if you want to get involved on this, go on our Discord or something.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It isn't, but I think contributing should probably have that. Yeah, this is what we should probably do.
Okay, so that's an issue that someone, if you're interested, they're welcome to write this, and this would be a good start. So if one of the people here in the audience wants to contribute to Pillow and get some of the fame associated with such a downloaded library, then please do. You can say fit for beginners or something.
Yeah, we should have that ticket.
Okay, so we're opening an issue live. That's nice.
That's right.
Wasting no time.
Always write another ticket.
I'm known for my directness and not going into any detail.
You can groom it later.
Yeah.
Scrum Master. Scrum. Oh, I don't remember the PC way of saying that now. Scrum Leader.
But notice, like they have no Scrum or anything like this, and it's been way downloaded. This means
We do not have Scrum, and I think if we had that, I would be annoyed, and I'm mostly not annoyed on this project.
Absolutely.
I'll give a hand for that. I'm not much of a believer in those systems, but well, that's me. Any other questions by anyone?
Wait, actually, you know what? I just realized maybe it is. Is it in? Where is it?
It's probably somewhere, but can't believe it's like 400.
If you do find it, it should be easier to find. So that could be.
Well, I think GitHub wants it in a certain place. That's what I'm just remembering. But
no, is it in the wiki?
no, it could be in like .github or something like that, though. Yeah, there it is.
Ah, it is.
Oh, in dot
Why is it in .github?
I don't know.
That's weird.
Wow, wrote a ticket and closed it in the same hour.
The same minute, 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay. That's annoying. Actually, I think we should link to it.
Is that common to put it in .github?
Yeah, I think GitHub wants it there.
Really? Since
Yeah.
then? Since when?
According to their, I mean, we wouldn't have put it there.
Do you not link to it from the README? I saw there was a link to a contributing thing.
Oh.
Add a file with
Oh yeah, okay, contribute.
docs or
Okay, so I
GitHub.
just missed it. I would I think that
Yeah.
it's over. Where is, I thought that GitHub did something. I'd have to read those GitHub docs, but I thought that they did something with it.
I found it. They just recommend you either put it in the docs directory or the .github folder.
That's where it is.
Yeah, it's in .github.
Yeah. Where's that chat?
But you know, obviously I'll go to sleep and then like remember this the next day and look at it, and if it should be somewhere that it's not, then that's how that type of thing gets fixed. It doesn't grab me like looking at either this or the README.
I would definitely naturally click on a docs directory to look for it, but
Yeah, I mean, this is our Sphinx, read the docs copy.
yeah.
But yeah, the very first thing I did was to look for the caps, you know, contributing. And then when I did,
It's amazing you still use RST format. It was like really popular in the 90s. It's less popular now.
I know, and I actually switched to Markdown recently too for my READMEs.
No, but it's amazing you still maintain it. So this is good. It's like
Markdown has some like nice bells and whistles on GitHub. Tribute. Yeah, this is like, this will bug me. Like I'll go to sleep and like it'll just like haunt me. Like this contribute should be under docs, maybe. I don't know, something's wrong here. But it's like, I don't, you know, you don't look at it for years and years and years.
Oh.
All right.
Any more questions by anyone before Alex?
What kind of tests do you have for this? You just build it, like build on different environments, build it on all the things, or?
A lot of tests, and they're all run by GitHub Actions. I think actually here's a good one that people might enjoy. I'm running into this. I just started noticing this. Well, let's see if it does it. Oops. So, oops, wrong directory. So create a virtual M, install from the checkout. Maybe it won't happen. It was happening on Mac OS. Maybe it won't happen on. But I was getting like 3/4 of the way through this, and then it just hung on my on my MacBook Air, and I was like, okay, I don't even know how to like. I wasn't sure just offhand how.
Well, yeah, I guess you do that in your actions. You test them on Macs, Windows, and Linux through the actions.
Yeah, and build wheels too. Most impressively.
Yeah.
So you know, there was in 2010 there was a test suite, and we've maintained it and added to it. Yeah, so it must have been a Mac OS thing. Looks like it won't run some of them if it can't find things. And we can look at the
I'm looking at your actions now. Yeah,
yeah.
your CI fuzz is failing. I don't even know what that is, but
Fuzzing is where you just run a process to find vulnerabilities and you just let it run and try different things for weeks and months on end.
Chaos monkey.
it's interesting.
But like, let's see, okay, pull requests. Oh, I think this one is only in his, I think is the deal. So let's see. Yeah. So that's what he did. So I can close this.
Okay.
I did
Yeah,
find
okay.
where the contributing pops up. If you go under insights, you'll see it there. And also, I'm sure you've long since silenced it, but when you go into issues, it actually pops up at the top of issues. Yeah, it has a pop-up for me if you want to contribute, and then it'll do contribution.
Oh, okay.
But if you click on your triple dots and you look at insights,
Yeah.
it's kind of buried, honestly. And then I know I just saw that. Oh, right. It's on the left-hand side, and then contributions.
Contributors?
Oh yeah,
These are the
contributors. There you go.
people who contributed.
No,
Yeah, this is the people who contributed.
community standards. Click on community standards.
He knows it's there.
I know it's there. Contributing.
Woo.
It's so obvious. Like,
There every time.
I mean, how do we miss that?
Anyway, more questions. You see, when the library becomes so big, then it's like only managing it's a headache. So
All right.
Uh,
Thanks. I'm going to stop presenting.
okay.
Yeah, another round of applause, or at least I'll clap for you. Thank you, Alex. Fun. That's like, I feel like, yeah, it gets downloaded so much. It's used anywhere you have an image in Python, you're using it.
The most interesting thing about that is that there's the perceived value to the globe, and you're like, okay, well, if the entire globe is using it and it's on Mars, on the Mars lander, then maybe there should be a business model where the developers can get paid. And so that's kind of like Tidelift's thing. And the only way that's why I say I don't like donations, because it's like someone has to be in the middle between consumers of the open source and the developers, such that they are creating this value for enterprise or whoever it is that's paying, and they can fund the developers. I think that's the model that will eventually succeed at a large scale. That and government
government
action happening, things happening with the government where you have to do this. That's a good way for open source developers to potentially get revenue.
So this is what you want us to take out of all this? It's like, by the way, it's really on the Mars lander pillow?
I have the badge, and so I've never actually been able to find references in their repositories, but we all have the badge that says that we were our code is on the Mars lander. So
Whoa,
I know
whoa,
that was exciting.
whoa. So yes, you for sure contributed to the world.
But I'm like, where's the, I don't see it in the requirements text, I've always.
No, because it may be some other library. Some
Yeah,
other
exactly. I know. It's just like, I remember going and looking for it. And I was like, where is it?
Yeah. Oh, well.
Are they running?
Go ahead.
Are they running pip install, remotely?
If it's okay with everyone, I'm going to stop the recording. Don't go away. Alex, you want to say something more, or?
No, just thanks everyone for listening, and I tremendously enjoy the opportunity to put these together and talk about it. And so thanks again.
Okay, I'm stopping now the recording.